Hello, hello, lovely people. Welcome to Kubefirst Live, our bi-weekly live stream. Super excited to be here as always. And I'm with my man, John. John, if you want to introduce yourself,
Hey,
like
I'm John.
within 10 minutes.
Yeah, let's keep it short and sweet. I'm John Dietz, one of the co-founders of Kubefirst. Excited to be here to talk about HashiCorp Vault and some single sign-on stuff.
That's awesome. My name is Frédéric Harper. I'm a developer advocate at Kubefirst, and let's get this thing started. So, as John said, we're going to do a deep dive in single sign-on and OpenID. So, OIDC, that's going to be the topic of today. And you may tell yourself, that's a boring topic. And I would agree and disagree, meaning that, like, I remember when I was a full-time developer, like, heading, logging stuff, and like single sign-on, and be sure that everything was connected and that my user have the proper access when they needed to. To be honest, that was the boring part to code. But at the same time, that was interesting to see like how everything was working behind and how everything was making my users' life easier. So today we're gonna deep dive on those two topics within the Kubefirst platform, and that's going to be a way for you to see that, okay, because we implement this in a specific way to make your life easier, you can concentrate on what you do best. We get your back when it comes to logging your users, or even yourself as an administrator or someone who is managing your cluster. So when we talk about SSO and OIDC, what's great is that, if you're new to Kubefirst, when you create a new Kubernetes cluster with Kubefirst, we pre-install a couple of amazing tools that all work together, and one of that tool is HashiCorp Vault, which give you SSO access to other tools that we installed on the cluster for you. So Argo CD, Argo Workflows, even the Kubefirst console application that we deploy for you, which is giving you like a really nice, beautiful dashboard of like everything happening within your cluster, at least part of what's happening in your cluster in the console, and all the other magic, you can see it with Argo CD. What's great is that because we respect the GitOps principle, the source of truth is the GitOps repo. And when you add users to your GitHub repository, a developer, an admin, it will propagate to all the tools thanks to the Vault IDC provider that's pre-configured throughout Kubefirst. So today we're going to show you a little bit, or actually, I should say, John's going to show you a little bit like how it's working behind the hood. We're going to demo you how also you can add multi-factor authentication. Vault got your back, but there's an easy way for you to do that, and especially using GitOps principles, so using GitOps repository as your source of truth. And you know what? That's beautiful. That's magical. There's rainbows and unicorns because like all the tools we install for you are already working. But the thing is that what's happening when you're going to deploy your own application. So there's something else we're going to show you today, how you can put your new application or service or whatever you're going to put on your cluster, which is, it's the important part. You have a working cluster, but you need to make your things work on it. So we're going to show you with Vouch Proxy how you can do that. So that's kind of like the high level of today's live stream. Again, those are all the things that you can install yourself, that you can make work together, that you can configure to make all the magic happen. But if you use Kubefirst, it's a question of like minutes, and all those things are beautifully working together. So that's kind of it.
Let's show them.
Let's show. Cool. Let's go to the demo. So let me share John's screen, and you're good to go.
All right, thanks so much, Fred. Yeah, so pretty much what we're going to walk through here. This is everything that we're showing you here today is a Kubefirst AWS install. We installed a GitHub variation of the Kubefirst AWS platform, and at the conclusion of a Kubefirst installation, you'll get a screen that looks a lot like this. That shows you how to get to some of the applications that we provisioned into your new Kubernetes environment. But you're going to need authentication in order to access these tools. Now, right after a Kubefirst install, you don't have any credentials yet. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is run a Kubefirst AWS root credentials command. And this AWS root credentials command is going to pull a few sensitive values that are embedded into the system. So the first one
Hi,
is,
John.
yeah, sure.
Like, I don't know if it's because you want to hide the password, but like if you can make, yeah, exactly. You read my mind.
You got it, buddy. Thank you for keeping me honest. So the first thing that we're gonna look at is there's a Argo CD admin password that's like a root level admin password that lets you into your Argo CD application. It's just admin username, and the password, whatever we give you here, is the password that they give us when we do an installation. There's also a KBot password. KBot is our single bot account that we provision with the platform. It is part of the admins group, and we're going to walk through adding users to admins and developers groups and stuff like that. But there is one SSO user that comes with the platform called KBot. So you can use that and explore SSO without onboarding users and stuff like that if you choose to. The last value that we give you as a result of that command is the Vault root token. Whenever you do a Vault installation and unseal that Vault token, the unseal process includes some Vault root credential as well as some shards, so that if you want to distribute that credential into a number of different places and leverage those shards of secrets in order to unseal the Vault, then you're able to do that. That's all details that we don't really have to get into. All we have to do right now is grab this root token,
which is,
and we're gonna. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, like, which is pretty cool, the root credentials. And I know I'm kind of like patting yourself in the back, but, you know, like if I want to access that manually, I need to use kubectl, like find the right namespace for Vault. And I, to be honest, I either never remember the syntax or like the template to really get like the information I'm looking for, or just completely forget to decode in base 64, and like every time I'm trying to log in Vault, I'm like, oh, that's not working, what's happening? So now with one simple, easy to remember command, thanks Scott for adding that. You saved me a lot of times, and hopefully not just for me.
Absolutely. And with that said, to our user community, if there are any convenience features that you would like to see added to the CLI, do let us know. We are happy to add whatever convenience features makes your Kubefirst experience a better one. So in any event, we ran the root credentials command. We copied this Vault root token, and let's hop into Vault and take a look around for a second. So I'm going to paste that right in there. And in Vault, you can see that we have a secret store. We also have a that's named secret. We also have a secret store named users, which is where you can find that initial root password for the KBot user. And as an administrator in Vault, we have the rules of Vault set up so that administrators are able to change any other Vault user's password, so that if somebody gets locked out, forgot their password, you're able to unblock them. So let's take a look, though, at the access admins group here. So there's currently just this one member of the admins group that comes with the platform, and you'll see that this user is this KBot user that got provisioned. So what is this? There's clearly an ecosystem in HashiCorp Vault where you can organize groups and you can put people in groups. And what we've done with the Kubefirst platform, when we do an installation of Vault, we enable certain features in Vault so that Vault by default is going to start up with not just an administrators group and a developers group and a KBot user that's in the administrators group, but we're also going to establish a OIDC provider. Now, an OIDC provider is it's a contract that allows us to establish that we have an identity provider, an IDP, the old version of IDP, not an internal developer platform. So we have an IDP in Vault, and we can put users in Vault, and we can define groups in Vault, and we can put users in those groups. And by establishing an OIDC provider that's bound to these groups, you're able to leverage that OIDC provider as a sign-in mechanism for other applications, whatever the other applications are. If they implement OIDC as a single sign-on configuration capability, then you can use HashiCorp Vault as your IDP and your OIDC provider, so that your users that you're setting up in Vault are the engineering users that you're establishing in all of your different applications. So let's take a look at what that looks like for a second. This is a GitOps repository. When we do a Kubefirst installation, part of the install process is you have to say something to the effect of Kubefirst AWS create, and then you pass us a handful of parameters, like what region you want it placed in, what AWS account or what SIVO account, if you're doing a SIVO one or whatever. You're providing us with details about the environment that you want Kubefirst installed to. So what we do with that information is we pull down the GitOps template, we hydrate it with the details of what it is that you want, and then we take that resulting GitOps repository and we give it back to you. We put in your own GitHub or we put in your own GitLab. So as a result, when you clone that GitOps repository, that's what we're looking at right here. And it's got two main sections to it. It's got the registry, which is where all of our Argo CD GitOps configurations reside. And then we also have this Terraform directory, which is where all of our infrastructure as code entry points reside. So let's start out by looking at the users in Terraform. So we start you out with an admins and a developers folder. We start you out with a KBot, and then there's you can see here that I've already changed this file to John Dietz and pre-populated it with my information. But you'll have one.
I'm pretty sure that file is not valid. Like there's something. Yeah.
No, it's almost valid. Let me just wave my magic wand, and voila! Now it's actual YAML. Thank you. And basically, we'll give you an example one of these when you install that's pre-commented, and you just change the first name and last name to your values. In fact, it'll look a lot like this developer one user here. It's just a fake developer. The one detail that is super critical to make sure that it's not fake data is this GitHub username, or if you're in a GitLab one, it's the GitLab username. Those have to be real values. You're onboarding real people onto this platform, and they have to have real corresponding accounts. So in any event, I've uncommented myself with GitHub username John Dietz here, and I'm going to go to the admin's outputs, and I'm also going to comment that one line and make the John Dietz module a member of the Vault admins group by uncommenting that. So when we want to apply any Terraform on the Kubefirst platform, we don't run Terraform manually. We always leverage a tool called Atlantis in order to have that nice audit control log of everything that's ever changed, and to make the changes to your infrastructure as code transparent to the rest of your engineering group. So let's show you what that looks like super quick. We're gonna check out a new branch called onboard John Dietz. And let's take these two changes right here and add them. And then we're going to open a pull request. I heard a rumor that GitHub was a little finicky today, so let's hope that that the great engineers over at GitHub have resolved their issues. You can see by just opening a pull request, an Atlantis plan is kicked off here, and we already have the results of that plan. So what this is Atlantis running a Terraform plan on our behalf, and it says, hey, if you want to add this John Dietz user, we're going to add John Dietz as a team member to your GitHub team, the admin team in this case. We're going to create a random password so that you can get that value of John Dietz's initial password. We're going to create a Vault generic secret, a Vault generic endpoint, an identity entity. These are all things that we have built into the user module in Kubefirst. You don't have to worry about these details. The way that this is actually working, I glossed over it, but John Dietz here is leveraging this ..modules user. So if we take a look at that modules user, these are, oops, should I click that? These are the resources that are part of a user on Kubefirst. And you can extend this to include as many additional things that you want a user to have as you like. So for example, if you wanted everybody in your organization to have their own dedicated S3 bucket for whatever reason, you could just add that resource to this user module, and every user that you ever onboard forevermore will have a dedicated S3 bucket associated with that user. So you can see pretty easily just by adjusting this module, how you can extend a user into all kinds of applications, all types of ecosystems, and really control who has access to what in a transparent way. This is one of the biggest advantages of leveraging Vault as your single sign-on implementation for engineering. So many shops have this story where there's an IT department. The IT department is the team that's leveraging, for example, an Okta implementation, and there's a requirement to have single sign-on. There's a requirement to have two-factor authentication, and you feel like you're trapped and you have to leverage what the IT department does. And you have to open an issue with them, a ServiceNow ticket or something, so that they can hop into Okta and do what they have to do and get you associated with the right groups. And there's a handoff. It's time consuming and it's not transparent and you don't know what they're doing behind that window. And really, as an engineer that's responsible for the security of your platform, you need that control over the users that are part of your engineering ecosystem and what those users have access to. It should all be transparent. And that's what you're able to get with HashiCorp Vault right out of the box, is you get this, not just a great secrets manager, which is a fantastic secrets manager, but you get this OIDC implementation with the concept of groups and users with an OIDC provider, everything that we're showing you completely free, completely open source. So I don't know if you've done the math, but single sign-on is a little bit expensive in the world when you're offboarding it to a SaaS solution. And it does provide great value. If you're an enterprise operation and you just want to offload that burden, by all means. But a lot of small shops don't have that same 100% uptime requirement for their SSO solution, and they're just trying to get by with a good security posture. And Vault does a really, really stand-up job making that available. So anyway, blah, blah, blah. We have this plan here and it's ready to go. Let's onboard this user. In order to take this plan and make it reality, all you have to do is type the comment Atlantis apply. Hit comment. And then what's going to happen here, the Terraform, this GitOps repo sends a webhook over to Atlantis, says it's time to apply this thing. Atlantis is going to apply the change. If it's successful applying the change, which it looks like it was, then it's automatically going to merge the pull request. It's automatically going to close it out. And the resources that were part of the plan are now actual reality. So let's hop into Vault and take a look back at the group of admins. And now when we look at members, we can see that there's not just one, but there's two people here. There's Jay Dietz and there's KBot. So now we have a new user in Vault that's a member of an admins group named Jay Dietz. And if I were to just go to entities and Jay Dietz here, edit the entity. Oh no, I'm sorry. Let me take that back. Auth methods, user paths, Jay Dietz. Now I can edit this user and give myself a friendly password because I'm an admin. We could also go to that initial passwords and capture the value, but it's a terrible long value that you're going to want to change anyway. So let's just go ahead and change it.
Pick a super secure password like test123.
Test123 it is. I'm actually going to do that, Fred. Help me remember it. Test 1, 2, 3. There we go. So Jay Dietz, the admin, now has this super insecure password. Don't ever do that.
Yeah, don't do that at home. But like, you know, I use that password now when I do a demo, because that happened to me in a presentation where I basically logged myself out and I did not remember what I put during the talk. So now it's just like 1, 2, 3, 4, test 1, 2, 3.
That's
so
right.
like there's no more of that issue.
That's fun. That's fun. So so we've got this Jay Dietz user. Let's go ahead and use Jay Dietz. I don't want to impersonate some vault root token or anything like that. I'm going to sign out. Now I'm going to change my method of login from token to username and put Jay Dietz as my username and test 1, 2, 3, boop. And now I'm in Vault. I'm Jay Dietz now. And because I'm a member of the admins group in Vault, and because our Vault OIDC provider is automatically configured as a authentication methodology for Argo CD, Argo workflows, you can now take this login session that I have, and from console, when I go to Argo CD, we have this button up here to log in via Vault. And when you click that, boom, single sign on, you're logged into Vault, but you're logged in as myself. Fantastic, right? So the onboarding, offboarding, it doesn't take a lot of imagination. You submit a pull request, you say, I want a new admin. And then once Terraform apply, or once Atlanta applies that Terraform, you have an admin user on your hands. And that whatever that OIDC provider is configured to integrate with your various tools, you're extending that user's access into all those tools. So let's take a quick look at what that looks like in a tool like Argo CD or Argo Workflows that wants to leverage an OIDC provider's OIDC client. So the first thing we have to talk about is the OIDC client itself. So if we look at Terraform Vault, this is how we configure HashiCorp Vault. We configure it all through Terraform. And you can see that we have this OIDC clients section here. And right now we have it set up with Argo, Argo CD. You'll have a console one that's commented out of the box on the current 2.0 implementation. I have this one uncommented to save the demo a little bit of time. Basically, we have a module that's called an OIDC client. Let's take a look at that real quick. So modules, OIDC client. If we look at main here, you can see that we're doing a bunch of stuff in order to basically get to this. This is a secret that when you create an OIDC client from the OIDC provider that's built into Vault, that client has a distinct client ID and client secret that you're going to need in order to turn on SSO for any application. So let's say you installed Kubefirst today, and we give you Argo CD, we give you Argo Workflows, we give you Vault, but you've got some other tool that you want to add onto the platform. Maybe it's Jenkins or something, right? And Jenkins has an OIDC configuration so that you can turn on SSO for authentication into Jenkins. So you would just add Jenkins, configure it to have OIDC, but it needs a secret and a client ID in order to establish that OIDC SSO connectivity. The way that that looks is up here in the registry. This is how you would configure an application, and every single application on the planet just about is going to have a different way of hooking in to an OIDC provider. They're all just a bunch of snowflakes, but the one consistent thing that you always have is this client ID and client secret that our module implements. It automatically puts those secrets in HashiCorp Vault so that it's automatically pullable into the platform, and then you can leverage it as part of your GitOps. However, no matter how an application requires you to configure it in order to establish OIDC. So if we look at Argo, let's look at Argo Workflows first. There's an application here, and it has, let's see, where is it? Right here, it has, well, two details. It has an auth mode that we, when you install Kubefirst, it automatically has the single sign-on auth mode turned on. The other detail is all of this configuration, which is where we're defining that, we're going to need a client ID, we're going to need a client secret, and we didn't define any of this structure. This is just how Argo workflows wants you to hook in that user ID and secret. And you can see that we're defining a handful of scopes. All of this detail is in the module that we implement, but basically we always have the same scopes available on all of the different OIDC client implementations. So if we look at Argo CD, you'll see that it's sort of similar, and it also needs a client ID and a secret, but their implementation's a little bit different. They expect that you're going to put these details in a configuration map, so we have that automatically set up for you the way Argo CD needs you to do it. And as you add, when you were to go and add Jenkins onto the platform, they're going to have their own distinct way to configure SSO. The point is that client ID and that secret that's sort of tough to establish and tough to get hooked in correctly, we've got all the tough work figured out. So basically all you have to do is figure out the way to get that value out of Vault and into whatever technology you're adding that you want single sign-on turned on for. So with that, you can see that we already hopped into Argo CD. We can hop into Argo workflows the same way. And again, I'm in here as myself. Fantastic. So the next thing that we wanted to talk about is two-factor authentication. So with two-factor authentication, there's a common phrase when it comes to protecting your access to an application, that you always want to confirm something that you know, and you want to confirm with something that you have. The thing that you know is easy. It's obviously your password. You have a username and password. Those are two things that you know. If you know those values in a lot of systems, you can just log in. But what that means is if somebody else, some bad actor, were to discover that password, they could log in and impersonate that they are you. And that's a bad thing, obviously. Now, with two-factor authentication, they say it shouldn't just be something that you know, like a password. It should be something that you have also. And with that combination of those two things, we can prove that you're you because you have the thing that you know, and you have the thing that you're supposed to have in your own possession, like your cell phone or like an RSA token or whatever it might be. So in HashiCorp Vault, you have that same capability of enforcing two-factor authentication throughout your organization. I'm going to show you how that works a little bit. So if we go up here to access, you'll see that there's this multi-factor authentication button here, and it gives you some nice links, and the tutorials are fantastic. Highly encourage you to go through, read them all, learn all the ins and outs of the details. But the long and short of it is that you can configure multi-factor authentication. And if you happen to have Okta, if you happen to have Ping as an IDP, you can leverage those still, but you don't need to have those, and you don't need to pay for those if you're a small SMB and you just want to have good security. You can do this TOTP, that stands for time-based one-time password. And if we hit next, you can leave. I like to fill this in with just the instance that I'm talking about. So because I installed this one to Kubefirst US, I'm going to just call it Kubefirst US. And then you can keep everything at its default. For enforcement, let's go ahead and force that anybody that logs into Kubefirst is going to have a one-time password. Well, let's not do that yet, or else I'm going to disallow my ability to log in and set my own one-time password. That would be terrible. So I'll skip this for a second. And then when I log out, or no, I'm sorry, I should have stayed logged in. Now up here in this user dropdown in the top right corner, you have this multi-factor authentication button available to you. This wasn't available until I turned on that time-based one-time password configuration. So when I go here, it says, hey, enter the UUID for your multi-factor authentication method. That value is a value that you're going to get from right here. So if I copy that and then go to my multi-factor authentication. And when you're telling people to establish their one-time passwords, you're going to have to give them that value because they're going to have to enter it in this. There.
Exactly. I was going to say it's the equivalent of like when you scan the QR code, some like 2FA application will also give you the opportunity to enter the UID, which is basically what you get when you scan the QR code.
Exactly. So so I'm going to use Google Authenticator for this example, and I'm just going to hit the plus button and say scan a QR code, and you can see it just brings up a camera shot, and you point it at your QR code, and then it automatically hooks you up with a 6-digit PIN for Kubefirst-US, which is what I named my TOTP configuration. So that's done. I'm going to hit done. And now, now that I've done that, I can go to multi-factor authentication and set up an enforcement. Now, in order to set up an enforcement, we do have our configuration set so that you have to be the root Vault administrator in order to change this. So I'm going to sign out real quick, sign right back in with the Vault token that we got from here. This is our root token. And then I can go back to multi-factor authentication and set up an enforcement. So when I set up an enforcement, I can say, hey, for the user pass authentication mount, make sure that every single person that uses that mount is using two-factor authentication. It's a really good idea for your engineers if you just want to get a handle on enforcing that everybody is using 2FA, then you can enforce it here. And because this OIDC provider is what's been extended into all of your platform tools, you can sleep easy that, every single tool and every single access to that tool is leveraging 2FA. So we're gonna hit.
Everybody's used to 2FA now, so it's not gonna be like a pain for anybody. And seriously, you should have like multi-factor authentication to your application service or anything. It's just the default best practice right now. Like it blew my mind when like some services, especially the one with important information, don't have any MFA or 2FA. I'm like, yeah, we're in 2023. I hesitated. I'm like, what year are we in? But like, we're in 2023. Like, no, it's basic stuff. You should have that.
Definitely agree. And it's not that hard anymore with great tools like what Vault's bringing to the table. Keycloak is also really good at being able to establish OIDC providers, open source and self-hosted. So let's sign out here. I'm going to sign back in with myself. It is the moment of truth. Thank you, Fred. And then if I have to remember my password, I don't know, J Dietz, and I think we did test 1, 2, 3, and then boop. Now I need this TOTP passcode, which is great news for me because I'm on the internet right now. And I just told everybody on the entire internet what my password is. So it's something that you know, but I have something that you don't have. So that's just a quick little aside to show the value of having two-factor authentication. I'm going to type in my 6-digit code here, 638770, which I can say because they auto expire.
But now that's awesome. That's awesome.
And just like that, you have that same the token, the session that you get by logging into Vault is the same session that's leveraged throughout the board, through all our platform tools. We sort of showed you a little bit about how we configure Argo CD, how we configure Argo workflows. But there's this one hole that's left behind in the story, which is, well, great. So there's all these apps in the world and they're cloud native, and that's fantastic. And you can edit them with YAML and set your client ID and set your client secret. And then you can establish SSO connectivity to all of your apps that have authentication built into them. But what happens if that application does not have authentication built into it? Are you just out of luck and everything has to be authentication free on the public internet? That's crazy, right? Nobody would want to live like that. So we're going to show you a cool little trick, and there's a handful of ways that you can skin this cat. The way that we're going to show you today is leveraging an open source tool. I know, Fred.
I don't like that idiom.
How could I? Fred,
No,
I don't know
no.
if anybody knows this about Fred, but Fred, you could probably tilt your camera and
I'm
show
done.
everybody. He likes cats. He likes cats. I like cats too. In fact, I have a cat named Linker D. That's how much I love cats. So in any event, we're going to show you through a tool called Vouch Proxy. That's another open source free tool that we've been using on and off for years. We like it a lot. You can also use certain service meshes and establish reverse authentication through service meshes that hook into your OIDC provider the same way we're going to show you Vouch Proxy. Vouch Proxy is just like a super lightweight, really nice and easy way to add off to something that doesn't otherwise have off. So let's take a look at that. Let's hop right back into our GitOps repository here, and I'm going to switch back to my main branch and pull. And if we go to the registry and look at Kubefirst, we have this application here called Console. In the console application, this is the YAML manifestation of this console application. And you can see that if I copy this URL and hop into an incognito session, there's no authentication here. You can just hop right in. It's available on the public internet. There's no sign-on. It has no concept of auth. It's just sitting there and available. Now, as an engineer, maybe I only want my team to be able to access this page because reasons. So I'm going to hook it into my OIDC provider. Let's look at what that looks like. The first thing that we have to do is go down to Terraform to our OIDC clients. And we have to create one of these. You need one of these sections of code for any new application that you're going to add to the Kubefirst platform. If you want to get that client ID and that client secret to be able to bind our Vault OIDC provider into a third-party application, you have to have one of these to establish that client ID and secret. Now, we delivered the Kubefirst platform with this one already there. If you wanted to do this for another tool, you would just copy this, paste it, change the word console there and there to whatever the new name of your application is, do a Linus apply, and then you've got a new secret. So, so with console there, the next thing that we're going to do now that we have an OIDC client is we're going to go to the console application, and we're going to add so the first thing that we want to do is add Vouch Proxy itself. So I have this pre-staged here, but what you can see is basically we're establishing a new Argo CD application. It's called Kubefirst Vouch. It has ingress values so that it has a way to get to it at vouch.kubefirst.us, basically. And then we've got some details here to give it a good secret. And then for the existing secret name, Kubefirst console secrets, that's how we're getting the client ID and the client secret into the Vouch Proxy ecosystem. Now, in order to do that, we're leveraging something called external secrets. When you install Kubefirst, you get this tool called the external secrets operator. It's automatically hooked into Vault, and you just have to use it by creating some YAML of kind external secrets. So let's take a look at that. Now, this particular one is a little bit complex for Vouch Proxy because we're leveraging a template that creates a config map, and then we're using that config map in another configuration. So here we're creating this config.yaml file that's templatized to leverage a client ID and a client secret. And then down here, you can see that we're using the key of that config.yaml from the template up above. So we'll make all of this, and we'll drop a comment so that you can get to this YAML content. But for the most part, it's basically just a config map that we're creating, and then we're binding that config map structure into an external secret. So now that that's uncommented and this is uncommented, the last thing we have to do is turn on vouch proxy for any ingress. In this case, we're going to be messing with the ingress of console. So if I uncomment these 7 staged lines, these are the 7 lines that you need in order to turn on authentication for an app that otherwise has no concept of authentication. And you can see that the annotations that we're adding are all Nginx annotations. The reason for that is because Nginx itself is what's managing what gets routed where, and they have these additional annotations available where you can decorate that you want a third-party OIDC implementation to deal with authentication before that traffic gets sent to your backend service. So just, uncommenting those, I said 7, really it's 4 lines if this is kind of embedded YAML.
Calculation is hard.
I know. And when we push this up, Fred, try not to hit me this time. I'm going to push this directly to main to save a couple minutes. Is that all right with you, pal? Good deal.
I'm not answering that.
I almost got him.
I don't want you to have this on record.
I almost got him to say it on record. It would have been so great. It would have been so great. All right, so let's do git add everything, and then git.
For the people watching the recording, at the exact moment that John was doing that demo, Jared was like merging a PR in the GitOps template repository that will make exactly what we're showing you happen. So in next version-ish, consoles will already work with vouch proxy. So everything we're doing right now, you're not going to be able to replicate it because that's still gonna that already going to be in the product, but you're going to be able to use the same step to use vouch proxy with your own application or any other third-party services or tool that you want to add to your cluster. But it was funny because I usually close my notification and I just saw like a PR from Jared exactly at the moment that we were talking about it.
That's
I'm like,
fantastic.
those two guys, they worked for too long together. Like I think they have one brain now.
That's so true. All right, so let me go to the registry. I'm going to be clicking this refresh button. You don't have to do this if you're willing to wait 3 minutes. I'm not willing to wait 3 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and proactively refresh. I'm going to drop into Kubefirst components and refresh that. And you can see that it says it recognizes that folder has some new resources in it. So it's going to go through. It's going to let's see. Yeah, the external secret here. This is where it's pulling in the secret, the client ID and the client secret. Then it creates the config map, hydrates that for the Kubefirst console application. When we hop into there, you can see when I refresh. And in fact, are you going to come back? It's refreshing. Do you have any hold music, Fred, while we wait on Argo CD to go ahead and refresh? All right, thank you. I bet that's good enough. I'm going to pop open a new incognito window and see what we got on console. So when I go to kubefirst.kubefirst.us, now suddenly this is no longer the console application, and it's not the console application because Vault is the required authentication that you need in order to gain access to console. Fantastic. So let's go ahead, change this to username J Dietz. I don't mind telling you my password is test123 because our vault is super secure and I have an extra secret that only I have. So that's great news. I'm going to go ahead and type that in, 105, boop. And just like that, console has authentication, leveraging your OIDC provider. Console itself has no concept of auth or anything. We didn't even have to restart console itself, because it's all managed at the Ingress Nginx layer with those annotations to bind it to our OIDC provider, make sure that the user is authenticated with one of the groups that are in the scopes that are set up for the vouch proxy implementation. So,
and
Fred,
the good thing is that like you can go check yourself. Like there's the console repo in the Kubefirst organization. The code is there. You can see like if we cheated or if like there's some like black box that we didn't show you during the live stream. You're gonna see. We just had the code that John talked about. You can check the console. There's nothing there.
And Fred, that's pretty much the whole dog and pony show for SSO on HashiCorp Vault. Just a quick recap. It's all installed automatically with a Kubefirst install. It's all completely free. Our product is completely free. This HashiCorp Vault open source implementation is also completely free. And if you were to look at other SSO implementations in the wild, they are far from free. So if you're looking for a nice self-hosted cloud native implementation for improving your two-factor setup for your engineering organization in a way that's transparent to your engineers, in a way that's simple to set up, in a way that's simple to hook into your GitOps, in a way that's simple to hook into your IAC. I really don't think that there's a better alternative, especially if you're using Vault anyway for secrets management. There's really just no reason to not turn on the two-factor authentication methodologies and leverage it as an OIDC provider throughout your organization. So
that was awesome. I like those kind of live stream. I just have to say stupid things, and you do all the job. So that's those are easy live stream for me. Joke aside, thanks a lot. Great demo, and you can use Kubefirst starting now. As John said, it's open source. We did the demo with AWS, even if it was transparent to you. But you can also use Kubefirst to deploy and create a new cluster, Kubernetes clusters on Civo, and you can even try it locally with K3D. So all the magic is done with Kubefirst, but the code is on GitHub, so everything's there. And we use GitHub, but you can also use GitLab if you want, has your Git provider or your Git hosting solution. So it's there. You can go on kubefirst.io/download or check the GitHub repository. Everything is there. And if you have any question, comment, insult, things that are not going well, you have questions that may not even be related to Kubefirst and just about Kubernetes and how to use Argo CD in your own project, or like just an idea about vouch proxy, you join our Slack community. It's at kubefirst.io/Slack, and we have a helping hands channel. We have channel for specific topics. We are just cloud native enthusiast, and we have some experience and expertise in the topic, and we're here to help you. So come say hi, make Kerry happy, start a GitHub repo. We love seeing those. We have a Slack channel with automation that show us the stars, and I feel like it's a great way to start the day or end the day or even in the middle of the day, and actually every time of the day. It's a good thing. So let us know if you have any suggestion, feedback about the product, constructive feedback. Let us know. We're also welcoming any type of contribution, not just code one. We're just a big, happy, open source community. So join us, come say hi, and have fun with us. So before we end the show, because I guess I need to do that now. So 3 databases, SQL walk into a NoSQL bar. A little while later, they walked out. Why, John?
why did they walk out, Fred?
Because they couldn't find a table. I know. I need to say I'm not the one creating those jokes. I find them on the internet, but I feel like I reached the age of dad jokes, but those are like developer dad jokes. So yeah. On that note, have a really good rest of the day, and we see you in 2 weeks for the next live stream.
See you, everybody.
See ya.